All right, welcome back to another Wednesday live training where I go live every Wednesday talking about all things to help up level you in your health, mindset, wealth, career, relationships, marriage, fatherhood, because all these things matter when it comes to becoming a better father and husband and an elite leader in either your family or your community. Now, this week is going to be an exciting one. I'm going to be talking about how to build a complaint-free relationship. It's going to be part one of a 5-part series. We're going to go in today talking about the 4 stages of every relationship. And you can see where you are in your stage, in your stage of consciousness and development, and where you need to go and how to actually plan that. The second thing we'll talk about today is why most couples break up in the first place. Have you ever wondered? Some of you probably have some ideas or thoughts. Maybe your wives even tell you, like, this is why we're breaking up. Don't you get it? She's probably told you like 60 to 70 to 1,000 times, and you just like never figure it out. But you're trying to figure out, you're like wondering, I'm doing all these things, why is none of it working, right? And the same thing for women, they're trying to figure it out too. So if you're a woman and you're listening to this video, it's the same thing. It's the same thing for both couples. So you're going to find out that key message. And then over the next couple of weeks, we're going to start going into polarities and why opposites attract, what men actually need to do that their women want, and the same thing, the opposite. What do women need to do that men actually need so that you can create that complaint-free and thriving relationship? And then the last episode, I'm going to break it down, how to build, what is the blueprint to building that complaint-free relationship. But you got to know the basics first, and so that's what we're going to get in today, the 4 stages of a relationship and why most couples break up in the first place. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Joel Evan. I'm a coach, best-selling author, father, husband. I was a former first responder for almost 15 years, and I've been married for about 12 years, been together with my wife for 15. I have 2 beautiful young boys. They are 10 and 6 years old. And I will say for out of the 15 years, 10 of those years, my relationship with my wife was tumultuous. It was rocky. It was unsteady. There were so many times where we should have called it quits. We should have thrown in the towel, but we didn't. And we're still here today. There's so many times where we threw the divorce word around, the D word. At least 6 times I can remember my wife saying, should we get a divorce? But we're still here because of the work that we put in. And I'm still here. I'm a product because both of us never gave up. And in the last few years, we've been able to rapidly transform our relationship in as little as 3 months. And I know now through all my training and everything I've gone through that it's actually possible for everyone. There's a framework to it. Marriage is a skill. Fatherhood is a skill. And so that's what I'm on a mission to do, to help others, men and couples, build unshakable marriages and families and deeper connection with their kids. If you're interested in learning more about any of our programs, free or paid, or you just want to connect with me and you want to just learn more about what it might look like to either work one-on-one or join one of our communities, just simply drop me a line or shoot me a DM and I'm happy to get you guys the details. Now, let's talk about why couples break up. Now, the reason that couples break up at the end of the day, it's really simple. It's because they have different emotional needs and their needs are not being met. If you ask someone if they're happy in their relationship, most likely they're going to say they are, because they're giving the kind of support that they need while assuming that one day they're going to get the same support back. But when men and women keep giving what they need and not what their partners need most, eventually, instead of coming together, they collide. And that's why you see so many happy couples end in divorce. They go from madly being in love to hating each other. Or they are happy with each other, but they still decide that they want to get a divorce, but remain friends. Either way, in both cases, the reason that they previously believed that they were happy in their marriage was that they were ignoring their different primary needs. And at a certain point, those needs could no longer be ignored. Obviously, ending a relationship and being friends, I think that's a good thing. But when this happens, here's the problem. They tend to pretend that they were really happy together. And it's this sort of denial that sets the groundwork for them to eventually fail in their next relationship. So if men and women are truly happy together, they must take responsibility for themselves, and they first need to be happy on their own. They can't rely on someone else to give them happiness. They need to be happy. So they have to apply all these strategies and these skills that I talk about in my weekly trainings, courses, and the coaching community. And they got to do it consistently. And the more you can start doing that, coupled with this idea you'll have a healthy relationship. Without doing it, you're going to continue to give the sort of love that you yourself want or need, rather than focus on the efforts of giving the love that their partners need most. And this, guys, is the biggest misunderstanding that will eventually end your relationship. Point blank, period. Okay? Now let's talk about the 4 stages of a relationship. Now, before we get into the 4 stages of any relationship, it's really critical to know these stages and where you're at so that you can pivot and evolve in the future. Anytime you want to change a habit, you've got to have awareness first of what the problem is. And most people that I meet, they don't even know where to start. So hopefully this training helps you guys, especially when you want to fix a relationship, right? A lot of guys I know, they try to give advice. They want to fix things. They want to give suggestions. But this only makes things worse, right? I mean, how many times have you ever tried to help and give a suggestion when one was not requested? We tend to find it difficult as guys to not give advice. Like, we're fixers, we're doers, and it's hard to just be in the moment. And we find it difficult, especially under stress, to not criticize and not complain, because what happens when we're stressed? We don't know what to do to find that balance. And so what we do is we tend to react automatically, and often in ways that don't work, right? So let's talk about the 4 stages. Let's talk about stage 1. In this stage of your relationship, communication with our partners, it's primarily focused on what we believe to be right or wrong, and not what is loving and not what is kind. It's based on what we believe is good or bad according to our social conditioning, our beliefs, our paradigms, how we were raised, our expectations, our standards, and what we believe to be true on how people should behave. And this leads to a lot of attempts to manipulate our partner into wanting them to change, to making them change. We might even coerce them to change. We might demand that through punishing them or shaming them. And the reality is, punishing and shaming, that comes from a primitive part of our brain, because it's what keeps us safe, and we want to be kept safe. We want to be kept alive. We know that. So when we're stressed and blood flow that should be going to the cognitive prefrontal cortex part of our brain, right, for that reasonable, loving part of the brain, it gets redirected to those primeval or primordial parts of the brain. And our automatic reaction is to attempt to control our partners and stay safe. That's stage 1. That's where I'd say 90%, I don't know what the stats are, but I'd say that's probably where 90% of couples live. And they live that way throughout their entire marriage, 30 years plus. And then if they don't, they live there, let's say 10 years, and then they go escape to another marriage and a new marriage. And that's why you see these people divorce 2 or 3 times. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's not ridiculous. It's just reality. And I just feel sorry for them that they don't have the skills, the tactics, the tools that they never learned. Nobody taught them. I wasn't taught this. I wasn't taught the blueprint. I had to learn this. I had to go spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in coaching to learn from the best. And maybe some people found it other ways without coaching like I did. But for me, that's what it was, right? Now let's talk about stage 2. Here in stage 2, we recognize that, guess what? The things that we did in stage 1, they don't really work. And so now we become aware of what's working and what's not, and we start to try to create new habits, new patterns to interrupt a lot of that disruptive behavior and then pivot. In stage 2, we recognize we're not perfect, but the issue here is we don't want to stay in stage 2 all the time, because at least when we make mistakes, we can then take that time to recognize, yeah, sure, this is how I contributed to the problem or to the dispute or to the mistake. But when there's drama, fighting, cold wars, instead of dropping back into stage 1, which we know we're used to, we start to recognize that, okay, I'm stressed. I need to do something. I've got to change. I've got to pivot. We may not know all the tools and strategies, but at least we are pumping the brakes and we're starting to slow things down. And so instead, what we do is we actually change first, right? We change our state, our emotional reactive state, or physically how we feel, right? And then later you go back and you interact with your partner and you find new ways so that it works better for everyone, right? So in stage 2, we're really just practicing holding back our reactions that don't work. And we're trying to respond in a more intentional way, in a way that makes more sense and actually works. I'd say a lot of people will gravitate from stage 1 to stage 2. And I did that for myself, going back and forth, but I would try something and a lot of times it wouldn't work. because I didn't have the right plan. I didn't have someone to keep helping me navigate through these murky waters. I might read something, you might watch a video like this, and you try something new, but then it just fails. And then you're like, oh, screw it. See, none of this stuff works. I'm going back to stage one. This is how life is. This is how my wife is always going to be. No one will ever change. And a lot of times I see a lot of that flip-flopping. Even if you start to just be less reactive, I know a lot of guys, they just feel like, well, they're just suppressing their emotions. So big deal that I'm not being reactive. I mean, that is the first step. Don't be reactive. But you know what I mean? A lot of times you're just feeling even more angry because you don't have the actual strategies or skills to respond after you've calmed down. And that's a big key. And that's when we're going to start moving into stage three. So we've been practicing what works, what doesn't work. We've begun to develop this inner compassion, right? You've gained more wisdom, and that's a good thing. And that's going to lead you to higher love, because higher love is what allows us to express our full potential in life. It's what gives us patience, confidence, acceptance, and lasting love. There's always going to be challenges, of course, but way less drama. And what happens in stage three is our passion and love, it just becomes way more stronger and deeper than our commitment to leave an old drama-infused life. And we see that all the challenges in the relationship, they're just opportunities now to become a more loving person. In stage one, we easily got upset. We complained, we yelled, we withheld our love, we would punish and shame and criticize. And we pretty much left with the simple message of, this doesn't work for me, and I'd kind of prefer to do something else. In stage two, we realize, oh, I can set boundaries. I know how to now disagree with you without all the drama or the demands. I can be flexible. I can be patient. But now in stage three, our demand for perfection, it's being replaced by this liberating acceptance of what we cannot change, and our appreciation for what can change, and the wisdom that we know can make a difference. That's a massive jump into stage three. In stage four, we start to fully accept that relationships and life will always present new challenges, and our ability to find greater love within ourselves within those challenges. And so it's not only acceptance, it's radical acceptance that life is not perfect. Our partner is not perfect. Problems and challenges, they are never going to go away, but that's okay. Now you start to kind of enter this flow state. You have a lot less attachment. You become less avoidant to the things that you want to do or you want to be. This is where you start to really enter this paradigm of unconditional love for you and your partner. You recognize, again, life's not perfect, but we are here to make it better for our partner, our family, and the world. No one can do it all, but we can each do our part, and that's all we can do, and that's beyond good enough. And so those are the four stages, guys. I'm curious to know, where are you at in your relationship amongst the four stages? It took me a while. I think once you start to go down this path and you start to learn the skills, the strategies, the techniques, and you start to embody them, going from stage one to stage two is probably the hardest. In stage two, you can stay stuck for a long time. Once you get to stage three to stage four is rapid. For me, it was anyways. And I think for a lot of guys, because it kind of like clicks. It just unlocks. Oh, this is how I'm supposed to be. This is actually kind of like the meaning of life, if you will. So I hope this training was helpful. Stay tuned for the next few trainings that we're going to have here in this 5-part series of how to build a complaint-free relationship. I know it's possible for you guys as it is for me. If you're interested, again, in learning more about some of my free communities, or you want to know what it's like to work with either me, my wife, or just one-on-one, and join some of my coaching communities, or be part of the group coaching with other men and have a tribe and a community to get you to the next level, which was imperative for me, shoot me a message, drop me a comment below, and I'll reach out. If not, guys, have an amazing week. Stay tuned for next week for some more great training. I'm out.